What's up, everybody? Welcome to That Wannabe Film Class, the show where we love movies. So each month we choose a theme and our members bring one movie that fits the theme for us to talk about. Maybe it's a movie they love. Maybe it's a movie they've been dying to see. Maybe it's a movie they just find interesting. Today, I'm your host, Ben Bellevue, and I am joined by the supervillain seducer, Chloe Naylor.
That's me.
That is you. I am also joined, finally, after 2 episodes away, by our other co-host, Logan Wilkinson. I don't have a title for you, Logan, because Chloe and I, we workshopped ours 2 episodes ago. So we need to workshop yours now. What kind of title do you think you want?
I don't know. You can't. I can't pick my own title. That's not how
you
titles
absolutely.
work. It's gotta feel right in the moment. You know what I mean? It's gotta be what we want it to be. I'm back though. I'm out of the void. Yeah, a spark.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are out of the void. And not only are you back, but you're back with your own movie to talk about this week. This month's theme, of course, is superhero movies. And for Logan's choice, we're talking Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that, Logan?
Great film. It's a great film. Iron Man 3. Let's get the hot takes happening right off the bat. Top 5 MCU film.
It's a bold claim.
It's a fantastic film. It is the best Iron Man film. We'll get more into my thoughts in a minute here when we get to kind of the have you seen it before? Like, what do you think of the film? But Iron Man 3 is great. I kind of had this gut feeling of I want to do this film from the minute we did superheroes. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this movie.
Fantastic. And I want to ask that question, obviously, of what our initial impressions of the movie were going into it. So I know for you, you clearly love it a lot. Do you feel like your opinion of it changed from rewatch? Have you rewatched it a lot of times since it initially came out? What's this movie for you?
I haven't seen this movie probably in 4 years, 5 years. I think for me, the biggest thing that's changed from the rewatch is the full realization that Marvel just retconned this entire movie out of existence. They just made this movie not exist anymore. Which to me is just so fucking sad. Because this movie, again, and behind the scenes, Hollywood shit was they made this movie with the knowledge that RDJ's contract ended after this film originally. So that kind of had to make it as a backdoor exit too if he needed to if he didn't resign, basically, if he was asked too much money, he just didn't want to do it anymore. And so the movie has a very kind of definitive end for his character in a lot of ways, you could argue. And then when they come back in Age of Ultron, they just pretend like it didn't happen. I feel like they just kind of ignored all of the important parts of this movie. And then we're just he's emotionally upset though. And they grabbed that one part and took it for the rest of the series and it didn't work, right? I've been on record multiple times as saying that I don't really like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man after this movie. And watching it again now and thinking about it again now, I'm man, he really I think this is his best performance in the entire MCU. And I think that it's the one for me where it's very clearly full circle from Iron Man to Iron Man 2 to Avengers 1 to Iron Man 3 now. His arc is completed here. He's walked away. He's got the thing out of his chest. He's done all of it kind of thing. He realized that he can be Iron Man without being in the suits. And it's really beautiful. And the journey in this movie is great. And then Marvel's oh, wait, well, we're just going to pay him $50 million movie. So he's back now. And so we're going to bring him back. And the problem is that it kind of undoes his entire 4-film arc leading up to this one. And so in Age of Ultron onwards, I've said many times, I don't think almost any of Tony Stark's decisions make any sense in the context of what has come before it. It's a brand new, it's basically Age of Ultron onwards, you're dealing with Iron Man 1 Tony Stark again. It's this is an uninteresting Tony Stark. It's not done as much. I've also said that I feel Robert Downey Jr. doesn't care as much after this movie. I feel he just very much is I'm getting paid $50 million to be here. And so I don't think he really seems to care as much as I don't think he's in it as much. And all of the big Avenger movies I like less. And I'm counting to be fair, Captain America 3, which is really an Avengers movie and not a Captain America movie. Also, that movie's not very good either.
It's true.
And so yeah, it's a bummer because Marvel to just kind of I feel this is maybe the most redheaded stepchild of the main kind of characters films. And it kind of saddens me because I really like this movie. I think this movie is very funny. I think Shane Black is great in general. I think that a lot of my favorite MCU movies are ones that have a very distinct feel to the rest, whether it's like Thor Ragnarok or Guardians or Winter Soldier. And I think Iron Man 3 feels different than a lot of other MCU movies. And they just I feel like it's left by the wayside a bit more than other ones. Also, the twist is great. Fuck everyone who says it's not. That twist lands and it still is good all these years later.
Big claims from Logan Wilkinson.
Yeah.
You're really coming out of the gates firing, man.
I was saying, I've been waiting for 2 weeks, man. I've been had it build up. Yeah.
Chloe, what about you? Do you have as strong a feeling about this movie as Logan did coming into it?
Coming into it, no, because this is the second time I've seen it. The first time being the first time I saw it in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I remember liking it, and I'm like, okay. And now I think it's maybe moved higher on my list now. But I was talking before, like, I feel like I have to do a whole rewatch of my MCU because I don't agree with my current ranking, but who has time for that? So, I like it.
I'm in the same boat Chloe was in, where like I saw Iron Man 3 the first time in theaters, and then I never saw it again. I remember liking it, but I also remember feeling like it was, what's what I'm looking for? It wasn't exactly what I wanted from the Iron Man film at that time. I think because Iron Man 2 was bad. And then Iron Man, and then Avengers, he was really cool. So I was like going into Iron Man 3 being like, yeah, I'm ready for some like super robot suit action. Let's go. And then a lot of this movie is not robot suit action, which retrospectively, totally fine with that. But in terms of like what I was going into the movie wanting, that definitely hurt my appreciation of the movie, which is sad because I think this is a very interesting movie as MCU movies go.
Yeah. I agree.
So we talked a bit about why you chose it already. You clearly love it a lot. You've had your whole spiel. This movie is the first Iron Man movie not directed by Jon Favreau. And you're talking about how you feel like this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance in it. I think one possible reason that his performance might have been so good is because, he was working with a director who he had a working relationship with. In fact, Shane Black, who is the director of Iron Man 3, was brought on by Robert Downey Jr. because he was like, guys, okay, Jon Favreau's not doing it. He's going off to do some other Disney dumb shit. And I want to bring in my buddy Shane Black, who directed me in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the movie that pulled me out of the Hollywood gutter and set me on this path of redemption that has now made me the most successful actor in Hollywood. Fuck all of you. I am your god. And I will.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has clout, man.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're talking superheroes, how can you not think of Robert Downey Jr.? If you're talking General Grievous, how can you not think of Chloe? It's the same level.
Wow.
Incredible.
That's an interesting interpretation.
I like that comparison. Thank you.
I thought you would. So, like I was saying, directed by Shane Black. Are you guys familiar with Shane Black as a director, as a writer at all?
Yes.
Yes, I'm trying to think of what else has he done, because I know the name.
Logan, what are you familiar with?
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a movie he directed. Do you know what he did before directing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
Yes, but I'm Googling names so I make sure I get it right. But like, is it Lock, Stock, and Smoking Barrel?
No. Well, maybe. Okay. No. Maybe. No. Yes. No. I don't remember. I'm going to take you down.
I'm Googling.
I've got the details. I'm taking you down a little journey right here. So Shane Black was a writer originally. He got his big break with his first produced film. You may have heard of it, a little movie called Lethal Weapon.
I never saw it.
Neither have I, but like it's a big deal.
He didn't direct the first Lethal Weapon, though.
He wrote it. He was a writer at the time. So, So Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was
Lethal Weapon 1 is actually a great movie.
Yeah. So Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was his directorial debut, but for like 20 years before that, he was a writer who did a lot of action things. So he started off by writing a little like espionage thriller over a 6-month period of time when his family was like, hey, we're going to support you. We're going to pay for like your rent and everything in LA and just write this thing you're trying to write. See if you can make something work out of it. He just graduated from film school And actually, he hadn't just graduated. He'd been doing like temp work and stuff. And he was like, I need time to like focus on my writing. So he focused on his writing, wrote that, got an agent out of that. From that connection, he was able to start getting work doing rewrites on scripts that had already been written and were like in development stages. So he became a rewriter, which pays decently well. And then eventually he got Lethal Weapon made. Lethal Weapon is like a big deal for him. Doesn't write Lethal Weapon. Well, okay, he wrote a Lethal Weapon 2. The studio hated it, even though he thinks it's the best thing he's ever written. And he then proceeded to go on and do other things. He wrote the Last Action Hero movie, which he's not very happy with. He wrote another movie that I thought I wrote down, but I didn't. But he eventually got his directorial debut with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. He has since gone on to direct, obviously, Iron Man 3. He's also directed Nice Guys and Predator, the most recent Predator movie. Nice Guys, very good. Predator, have not seen, but have not heard good things about.
Probably not too great.
Yeah.
You
don't need to watch it.
This isn't a good time for Alien or Predator movies.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Last Boy Scout and Last Action Hero, great though. I like them.
I've heard very good things about those. He made a lot of money on those movies. He made like millions of dollars on each of those.
He made like $4 million on, I think, right on one of them.
Yeah, on Action Hero, I think. So
Great movie.
this movie is obviously also written by Shane Black, as he is a writer originally. It's also written by Drew Pearce, who gained clout for writing a show for in Britain called No Heroics, which is about kind of like crappy superheroes. And he was hired by Marvel originally to write a Runaways movie, which makes me very sad because the Runaways TV show is fine, but I would have loved to have seen a Runaways movie. And he got pulled off of that to write Iron Man 3 with Shane Black. He has since written Hobbs and Shaw and Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Got a good little filmography there.
Yeah.
He's making some stuff.
Good for him.
Shane Black as a writer is known for a couple of very distinctive Shane Black things.
Yeah, he is.
One, the biggest one you may have noticed is all of his movies are set during Christmas.
It's Christmas.
Yeah.
He talked about why he did that in an interview that I definitely thought I kept up and then closed. But basically he says that he likes Christmas for a couple reasons. One I'll get to later, but one of the reasons on an overall level all across all of his movies why he likes Christmas is he just kind of likes the little bits of magic and how they connect people. He was talking about how, especially in LA, because that's, where he's from, in Los Angeles, Christmas isn't like as easily identifiable as it is in like suburban Chicago, where, in Home Alone, you have snow, you have lights everywhere, you have all this stuff. It's like the image of Christmas. Whereas in Los Angeles, you don't have snow and you don't see lights everywhere because it's a major city. So he was talking about how he went into like a little Chinese restaurant and found a little dangling ornament kind of tucked into a corner. And it was just cool to see these like little touches of Christmas throughout. And he thinks that's magical. So he makes all of his movies based around Christmas. It's kind of cute.
It is cute. It's adorable.
Yeah. Moving on, the biggest name attached to this movie, obviously, besides the aforementioned Shane Black and Robert Downey Jr., is Kevin Feige.
Mm-hmm.
The Feigs. The Feigmeister.
The Feigmeister, man. In the house.
Oh my god.
Feigerlicious.
Oh no.
The Fast and the Feigiest.
Mm-hmm.
Stop!
Mm-hmm. 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 That is correct.
Kevin Feige is the master of the MCU, as we know. Guys, how do we feel about the MCU overall?
We're doing that? We're trying to make this a quick podcast, let's talk about the MCU as a whole.
No, let's talk about the MCU as a whole. I want like quick opinions, like 2 sentences. How do you feel about the MCU? Let's start with Logan.
I think it is wildly ambitious, a really cool idea to see executed on over a decade and 20 plus films. I also think that over time, the movies began to feel very samey and it blocked off a lot of its best characters from getting able to do cool things. I think in particular of Captain America and Iron Man, who I think they just kind of pushed off a little bit towards the end, but then gave great farewells in Endgame, obviously. But like Captain America 3 isn't a Captain America movie to its detriment, and Iron Man was kind of a weirdo after Iron Man 3. So yeah.
Chloe, what about you? How do you feel about the MCU?
I like.
I feel like we've talked about this a little bit.
We might have.
Talking about the DC universe and like the Incredibles and how we compare that to obviously the juggernaut that is the MCU.
Yeah. No, I like it. It's been great growing up with these movies for the past, decade. And
that's the weirdest thing to me is that, like, Chloe, how old are you again?
21.
Yeah, and so like as somebody who just recently turned 28, it's that thing of like, it's also a mixture for me, at least, it's been like, it's just like really weird. Like not like, I feel like Greg or like Trevor, somebody like in their 30s, even more so, but like not taking it for granted, where it's like, I grew up in the age of, like Batman Forever and like Batman and Robin and like, like the same maybe Spider movies, but also like a lot of bad super movies where like a super movie came out and it's like, it's got a 50-50 chance at best to be good. And now we live in an age of like the vast majority are good. And when one is bad, it gets a lot of flack. Because now that's the expectation, the bar has been raised so much higher, right? Where it's like, I don't know, like I remember when Batman Begins came out and it was like, this is a fucking bolt of lightning. This is how Batman should be done. This is a great movie, kids, kind of thing. And so like, let alone 20 movies that are like, even at the worst, are still like, that's entertaining enough. So we'll give the MCU credit for that, of like that, along with the Nolan kind of Batman movies collectively raising the bar and changing how we talk and view and critique superhero films.
There's definitely, I've had this conversation with a friend because my friend is like a very indie movie kind of guy, and he likes, art house stuff, and I do too. But I was talking to him and I'm like, really?
Tell him to see Parasite.
I just told you my friend is an indie man who likes art house movies, and you think he hasn't seen Parasite?
I'm just making sure, man. I'm spreading the good word on that movie.
That's fair. Parasite is a humdinger. So
it's a real barn burner.
My thing is, I think that the MCU is one of the riskiest things that has happened in movies in ages. Because like realistically, when you make an indie movie, yeah, it's cool and it's original and it can like push boundaries. And I think we're definitely seeing riskier things coming out right now. Like The Farewell was very risky because it is an American movie that is presented heavily in Chinese, in Mandarin specifically. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if an indie movie fails, it's not that big of a deal. Like look at A24. A lot of A24's movies don't succeed. They aren't remembered. It's just that A24 distributes enough indie movies that they usually have like 5 or 6 amazing ones each year. Whereas with the MCU, they banked everything off of creating this world. And I think that was a very risky endeavor in its initial form. So like phase 1 of the MCU, I think is incredibly risky, and I respect the hell out of it. And then it's just like the longer this has gone on, the more it's become stale. And I know Kevin Feige's spoken about it where he says like, we are trying to be very aware of this. We try to keep ourselves fresh. And I think sometimes they have succeeded on that. Like I think Thor Ragnarok is pretty fresh overall, despite still having issues that I could like nitpick if I wanted to. But at the same time, I do think that it's become a lot less risky, a lot more samey. And I talked about that a lot in the last episode when we talked about Wonder Woman, because I appreciate that the DC extended universe, despite having a terrible name, is willing to try new things. And it feels way more diverse in tone than the MCU does. Guardians of the Galaxy still slaps though.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely,
so
it does.
So this has been the basic people who were working, above the line meaning the writers, directors, the major talents who sometimes have producer credits. But we need to talk about the cast for this movie. We have, of course, Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Don Cheadle as James Rhodey Rhodes, Guy Pearce as Aldrich Killian, Rebecca Hall as Maya Hansen, Ty Simpkins as Harley Keener, You may also recognize him from Jurassic World, where he played the younger brother. And that's the only other thing I recognize him from. Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin in a role that is just such a weird choice for Ben Kingsley. And of course, Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. Jon Favreau, best known for directing Iron Man 1 and 2, directing Lion King remake, directing Jungle Book remake, creating The Mandalorian.
Shout out.
Stuff like that. You know, no big deal. He's no one that important.
Just small things, you know, small projects.
I mean, it's amazing what you can do when you just jump on Disney's dick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Look,
I'm gone for 2 weeks in this podcast.
This podcast has changed, Logan. We're a sin podcast
That's
now.
what I'm beginning to vibe, yeah.
So here's the thing with Jon Favreau. He makes good things. Don't get me wrong. Like I appreciate a lot of his work. I appreciate some of his work. I respect him as a human being. That's what I'm saying. However, he didn't make Iron Man 3 because he wanted to make a movie called Magic Kingdom. Do you know what Magic Kingdom is? It didn't get made.
It's a Disney park area.
It's basically Night at the Museum, but in Disneyland. That was Jon Favreau's big, I'm done with the Iron Man franchise, I'm going to go do something else. Taika Waititi made one Marvel movie and then went on to make fucking Jojo Rabbit. And Jon Favreau was just kind of like, nah, I'm enjoying this. Here it is. And like, I mean, to be fair, don't get me wrong. I am a big fan of like family oriented content. So like I could, as a screenwriter myself, I could definitely see myself in a happy working relationship with Disney for a long time. But it's not just that he's like making things for Disney. It's that he's making like a movie or trying to make a movie about Disneyland. And then he's making a remake of a Disney movie and then another remake of a Disney movie and then a movie or a series based off of Star Wars. Jon Favreau is just really like, he's become Disney's man is all I'm saying. Yeah. This is probably overly critical of Jon Favreau and I apologize to him or his family who are listening.
Because they definitely are.
I mean, our viewership is 7 billion people, every single person on this planet. I mean, like Bob Iger, hire me. I know you're there.
Now fuck that noise.
So that's our cast. That's our crew. This brings us to the meat and potatoes, the stew. Chloe, yes. What happens in this movie?
What happens in this movie? Well, we start with Tony Stark narrating. He's like, some famous dude said we create our own demons, which is, I have it written out like, he said this quote said by Tony Stark, same as, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. You know? That's the vibe we're going for.
Sure.
So it's New Year's Eve in 1999. Tony
Mr.
Stark
Blue Sky, or not Mr. Blue Sky. I'm Blue is playing.
I forgot to add that in my notes. I was going to go back and like, this fucking song is playing. And then suddenly I'm back in the hell house that is London.
That's a very you response. But I was thinking more like, because obviously I was not in the hell house that is London, so I can't speak to it whatsoever. But I just think it like is a fun intro to this movie. That slaps. Like it starts playing over the Marvel logo and I'm like, yeah, fuck me up, Shane Black.
Oh yeah, let's get it. What's going on? So turn of the decade, Tony Stark is a straight up asshole to everyone. And now he's telling everybody how he's going to fuck this girl. And like, God, shut the fuck up. I miss you though, but shut up. And then, you know, some poor guy with a cane is like, oh my God, Mr. Stark, I'm your biggest fan. I have a pitch for you. Tony's like, oh yeah, dude, I totally want to hear it. I'll meet you on the roof in 5. Spoilers, Tony does not meet him on the roof. Instead, he's introduced to this girl's regenerating exploding plant experiment, but he just kind of wants to get in her pants, so, you know. Things happen. He leaves her, whatever. Jump to modern day Tony. He does not sleep, and he's shooting up heroin in his basement. He's just putting implants that'll summon the Iron Man suit to him. It's pretty lit. So it's pretty cool experiments going on.
It's a fun little scene.
Oh, yeah. What's not lit is turning on the TV and seeing a terrorist threat from the Mandarin. Oh, boy. America responds by rebranding War Machine to Iron Patriot. Tony makes fun of Rhodey for this. Well,
can we also talk about... I made a note, and I kind of forget exactly what's in relation to. But Tony Stark made a she's not like other girls joke at some point in this flashback. And I don't know how to process that. Honestly, it's been like a day since I watched this movie, and I'm still thinking about Tony Stark being like, she's not like other girls.
Yeah, he's great. God, love him. Gotta love him. So yeah, Tony makes fun of Rhodey while they're in this restaurant, and a couple kids come up and like, oh my god, they want his autograph. It's Tony Stark, Iron Man. But kids are assholes, and Christmas Story Kid kind of triggers an anxiety attack for Tony, and then he just kind of fucks off, doesn't want to deal with that. Kids are assholes is a big theme of this movie. Yeah, it is. I have this kid is an asshole like 5 times in my notes. I do too. Nice. Solidarity. Kids are assholes. Does Shane Black have children? Great question. I have no idea. He's either deeply afraid of the concept or really hates his kids. Gonna hope for the former, but sure. You never know. You never know. It's like when we were watching Inception and we're like, I wonder how Nolan's wife feels about these movies. Right. I mean, she's a producer, so presumably she feels okay. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Back at Stark Industries, Happy's been promoted to head of security. Yay for him. When Pepper's being visited by the poor guy with the cane from the party, except, he doesn't have a cane, and he's been lifting, bro. Dude, he got swole. He got swole. You know what else he got? What? That inciting incident. That's right. Hey. The basic 3-act structure breakdown is back, ladies and gentlemen. I actually don't know if this is the inciting incident. I think it is. This movie's... I'm calling it the inciting incident. There are a couple other moments that I think could be argued, but I'm going to not argue them because fuck that, I'm right. Fair enough. Okay. So this dude, his name is Aldrich Killian. What a fucking name, dude. Pulls out a hologram of space, but then like a hologram of his brain looks like space, and honestly, I'd probably fall for that real fast, so good on you, Pepper. But she denies his request to fund his extremist project or whatever, and him and his goonies leave. And Mr. Happy, that can't flip an iPad, can take a picture of a moving license plate. So, okay, cool. That's fine. It's true. It's true. Yeah. Pepper goes home. This movie's been really funny so far. It's been great. It's got like great... I'm not surprised because Shane... Yeah, it's got good humor. It feels like it's in line with the MCU's tone, but it also doesn't feel like it's just trying to be Joss Whedon's brand of humor. It feels very much like it's got its own vibe, its own style. Yeah. Yeah. Like me too. So Pepper gets home to a giant stuffed rabbit, which I thought were huge tits at first. It's just its arms. But, yeah, it's fine. No, that's Iron Man 1 Tony Stark kind of gift. That's true. We're past that. He's changed as a person. I want a so this movie got a short film made off of it called All Hail the King, which is about the guy who plays the Mandarin when he's in jail. And and like a lot of other MCU movies got that too. I want a retroactive Iron Man 1 movie where it's Tony Stark getting Pepper or someone giant tits as a gift. And then it's just like a 1-for-1 shot with this one. And I thought of this moment. So the way to make that work in a good, funny way, don't have it yet, but I know it's there. I know it. Chloe's giving me a look that suggests that it's not there, but I believe in myself. Sure. Just you workshop on that for, forever. Nah. Okay. I don't have that MCU money. Fair. So her and Tony's relationship is kind of tense at the moment because he has insomnia and spends all of his time tinkering with the Iron Man suits, but he's just paranoid from the New York attack in Avengers 1, and he just wants to protect Pepper, but she's kind of fed up with the suits. Meanwhile, Happy's been following Killian's goons and discovers they glow, heal themselves, and also fucking explode. So Happy takes an L there. Real melty boys. Tony, of course, is pissed that his best friend has been blown up and is now in the hospital. Doxes himself live on air. It's like, hey, Mandarin, here's my address. You're a pussy. You won't do anything, bet. Tony Stark makes some dumbass decisions, and Tony Stark ends Act 1 in the process. Yeah. He does. cue the Always Sunny or Curb the Enthusiasm music and the title card, Tony gets his house blown up. Massive hell there.
I want that edit right now.
Oh my god, I'll do it.
I'll expect it on my desk by midnight.
I can do that.
And by my desk, I mean Twitter. And by midnight, I mean whenever you want to.
Okay, gotcha. I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so everyone thinks he's dead. His house got blown up. Yikes. But no, he just ends up in Tennessee, which might be worse, actually. And he meets a child, and the most annoying one on the planet, who is constantly asking him questions about the New York attack until Tony has another panic attack. Jesus fucking Christ, kid, shut the hell up.
The takeaway from this movie is really that the only thing Tony can rely on is his suit.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, or Jarvis, I guess, technically.
Or, yeah.
This is my way of bringing it back to him being... I just wanted to highlight that I thought it was really cool when he was submerged underwater and the arm like detaches from him and helps him out of the water. That was dope. That was real cool. Yeah. Shane Black really said fuck Tony Stark though with that scene.
A little bit.
He was just like, hey, you know, every ounce of imagery Tony Stark has, it's gone. We're blowing it up. It's the end times, man.
Yes. So annoying kid, his name's Harley, shows Tony the spot where this ex-military guy supposedly built a bomb and blew himself and 5 other people up. That's cool. Tony talks to that guy's mother, find out what really happened. And then this crazy hot lady shows up to get lit. And I mean everything in that sentence literally. Because everything is on fire, including her. Tony beats her by being real smart, tells Harley to take care of his suit, and then he drives off to figure out what the fuck is going on. Cool. Also,
that was some bad fight editing.
Yeah, not great.
In the diner, I guess, the cafe. I don't know, when they were in like the eating establishment, that was some impressively piss poor fighting editing.
Choices were made there on the editing floor, but
I mean, yeah, it might have been on the choreography floor,
or that. Either way,
choice was made. Is
choices
what
were made.
Really matters,
right? But one of my favorite lines is like, kid's like, hey, we're connected. I gotta go with you. And Tony's like, no, fuck off. He's like, oh, I'm cold. He's like, yeah, I know. You know how I know? Because we're connected. It's great. Tony Stark is an asshole and I love him.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I know. I am too. Thank you. Every time, man.
We see the Mandarin eat a guy.
Yes, this happened.
Yeah.
I thought you said eat a guy. I'm like, did you watch a different version than I did?
The director's cut.
Crazy. No, I didn't have that version. But okay, so the Mandarin eats a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
you can interpret that any which way you want.
Yep.
I feel like... So you know how Logan, are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's alive. So you know how Logan was like, I love the twist with the Mandarin?
Uh-huh.
Right. I realize this is like retrospective because I'm watching this movie already knowing that the Mandarin isn't the Mandarin. But I definitely, just like the entire time watching Ben Kingsley like chew scenery as this character, I was just sitting there like, how did we ever believe this was really the villain? Like, obviously from the trailers, it wasn't presented that way. But that entire scene was so over the top. And it's kind of impressive that they were able to toe that line so well that it was like, once you know, it's so clear that it's fake, but it doesn't go so far that you just utterly lose your belief in the scenario. Because I was definitely...
I think part of it too is the fact that, again, this was kind of in the middle of like the MCU like renaissance of like superhero movies are a thing now, guys. And so I feel like honestly, like our expectations were lower. So it's like it's over the top and like overacted kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, but like a lot of superhero like villain characters kind of that thing. So like, yeah, like he's the villain. Like it's definitely him. Like it's definitely not any other thing. It's like he's the bad guy. I get it. I understand, guys.
And like Ben King's is such a big name.
Yeah, and Ben King is a huge name. So it's like, yeah, like, and then it just turns out that we were incorrect.
Yes.
Go figure.
Fully.
Nice.
Chloe, what happens next? Tony drives off.
Tony drives off.
He tells the kid that he doesn't care about him, just like his dad didn't care about him.
Yes.
Fuck.
Good. Take the kid down a peg a little bit. It's fine.
I mean, he gave him like 3 anxiety attacks. So you know what? Quid pro quo.
Exactly. You deserved it. It's fine.
Kid pro quo.
Had to be done. Had to be done.
Yes. So he hacks into this news truck. Luckily, the dude is a huge fan of Tony Stark, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll totally help you, man." They're covering local.
My favorite scene when I watched this movie.
Was it?
Because the actor who plays the news truck guy is an actor on the sitcom Happy Endings, which was airing at the time. And Happy Endings is underappreciated, but really good.
That's right.
So I still get giddy when I see it. I'm like, hey, look at you in a movie doing things.
You know.
He went on to be in the Mindy Project.
Oh. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, quick Stanley cameo. He's being a perv. It's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A Westworld reference. This movie's ahead of the curve.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Do you think that Jonathan Nolan watched this movie, went, oh my God, I forgot Westworld was a thing, and Iron Man 3 is the catalyst for all of what came after?
Yes, absolutely. That's what happened.
Yes, thank you. It's 100%. I think we've just broken the entire code. I think if we watch every MCU movie, we can predict everything HBO will make going forward. Think about it. They have a TV show with Zendaya. Zendaya's in the MCU. They have a Westworld show. They reference Westworld in Iron Man 3.
Interesting.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did they predict the abysmal ending to Game of Thrones, or is it just new shows?
They might have, but I'll have to do further research.
Okay, all right. There might be some.
I'm not an MCU expert.
Clues. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like maybe if you took like a certain word from each movie and you pieced it all together, it would say Game of Thrones will fail, and you will cry. Right.
It's like the 27th word of every movie. Yeah.
All hail the Queen.
You're right. Oh, God, get far away from that.
And let's get to the midpoint, where he gets a lot of information.
Yeah, he does. Why couldn't Rhodey's username be War Machine 69? Idiot.
This is a children's movie.
Come on, one number off?
It's probably a reference to something.
I guess. It's like probably like comic book 68 or whatever War Machine first shows up. I don't know. I'm not a nerd.
I mean, you are.
I'm not that much of a nerd.
Touche.
Thank you. So, he learns the extremist program was used for war vets who had lost their limbs in combat because, holy shit, it can regrow limbs and all that. But your body does not take the extremists. You explode. Violently. Like 3,000 degrees violently.
Celsius.
You're right. Whatever that means in Fahrenheit, because we're Americans here.
The big number.
It's a big number, guys. So, meanwhile, both Pepper and Rhodey get captured, and Tony builds a bunch of neat little gadgets to break into the Mandarin's mansion in Miami. Say that 3 times fast. Holy shit, it's great. Cool little... Tony's smart, and he can build things and hold his own. It's cool.
It's true.
So
he built this in a child's garage with a box of scraps.
Thank you for that. I'm going to shout out Katie there real quick, because that's like her bio or whatever, you know? Tony Stark built me in a cave with a box of scraps. Love her.
That's a good bio.
It is a good bio.
I like that reference a lot. I used it like a week ago for my 12 Angry Men rewatch on Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd at Mr. Bento Boxed.
Shameless plug. Anyways.
This entire podcast is a plug.
That's very true. So anyways, surprise, the guys we've been seeing on the broadcast is not the Mandarin, just some dude. Real Mandarin is white guy number 5, actually. So,
Mm-hmm.
You know. Then Tony gets caught Killian does the whole evil villain monologue thing. Shows he put the extremist in pepper, so Tony has an incentive to fix it so it doesn't explode. Okay, cool. Well, the ex-girlfriend's there. She's like, well, actually, I'll kill myself, so you stop. And then he just shoots her. It's like, okay, well, you had no leverage there in that conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, he could have just like not been culpable, but sure.
Yeah, but no, looks fine. So, yada, 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 quippy Marvel lines. Tony gets his suit back piece by piece. It's time for him to Rhodey to get on a boat. And I'm reminded heavily of Uncharted 4 in that boat scene. But anyways, they're on their way to go see the president.
Nothing but respect.
Of course. So Tony flies ahead to Air Force One and saves 13 free-falling people. Which is a really cool scene. I like it a lot.
That's a great scene.
It's an awesome scene.
Jarvis like, you can carry 4 people. He's like, well, there's 13. So, and he does it. Saves them. And then immediately gets hit by a truck. And, oh my god, surprise. He's been doing it remotely the whole time. Cool. Thanks, Tony.
Good little callback.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, president's been kidnapped. And he's like, hey, calling the VP. Like, you gotta do something about this. Now he's in on it because, oops, his daughter has 1 leg. So guess who he's working for? All right. They infiltrate this oil rig. Tony calls the house party, which is all the Iron Man suits doing their thing, fighting all the extremist bad guys. Tony goes to save Pepper. Rhodey goes to save the president. Rhodey does his job. Tony's trying to save Pepper, but the rig she's hanging from shifts, and he watches the love of his life fall to her death. So, L there.
Weird way she was shot dying. Like dying, quote unquote.
Yeah, it was a little...
It was sudden.
Yeah.
Like the way the fact they didn't slow her fall down or anything was one of those moments where like they didn't put enough weight on it. So it's kind of just like, well, she's alive.
Yeah, because if it was like more slow-mo, more impactful.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I remember in the first time I watched this movie, she fell and I was just like...
She's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So Flaming Hot Cheeto guy shows up and he will not die. Tony like blows him up multiple times. It's fine, you know. Then he gets cornered by him. And whoa, wow, surprise. Oh my god, Pepper's not dead? Whoa, crazy. But the extremist is working for her. Things. She kicks ass. Homie had no chance. He dies. True. So after all that's said and done, she's like, oh my god, that was really violent. But Tony says all hell right now.
Yeah. Yeah. She wraps up her weird love triangle storyline that was forced upon her.
That was very
with murder.
And, like, didn't work. Yeah. It's fine. That
it was bad. Everything. It was not a good thing.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, Tony's horny as hell. He's like, hey, watch this. And then Jarvis blows up all the suits. Cool. So he fixes the extremist in Pepper. That's remedied. And then Tony's like, you know, why stop there? Finally gets the shrapnel taken out of his chest. And then he throws his now useless arc reactor into the ocean. But even without the tech, he will always be Iron Man. Roll credits. Post-credit scene.
Which is the entire point of the movie and his character arc, just to say.
It's fine. Post-credit scene is Bruce Banner being a bad friend. All right.
It's true.
We're done.
Did this movie really introduce the idea of Bruce Banner being a comedic relief character and not being a like serious, emotionally complex character? And that makes me sad because the MCU's treatment of Bruce Banner post the Avengers is its biggest failure.
Disagree with that.
I know you do. Chloe's in a corner.
In the corner, like, I don't have an opinion on Bruce Banner.
I don't know what the hell you guys are saying, but fair enough.
I don't know what the fuck you just said to, but hell yeah, I'm gonna speak my truth. Fair enough. Anyway.
She knows her memes better than I do.
I know my memes. Don't worry about it. Leave me.
I worry about other things in regard to you.
That's fair.
Your mental well-being.
I'm fine.
Your physical well-being.
I'm fine.
Sure.
Don't worry about it. I will worry about the memes. You worry about the movie scripts out there.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Eloquent, poetic.
Truly.
A lyricist, practically.
I'm gonna go into music, guys. Fuck video games.
Congratulations. That is a good mentality, honestly.
Honestly, right.
You follow your truth. Guys, that's the movie. I want to know what we thought about it. So, Logan, checking in with you.
Mm-hmm.
You've rewatched the movie for the first time in a while.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts post this rewatch?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that it's such a distinct feeling film, right? I think Shane Black's flair adds something really special to this movie, right? Like, I think there just is something to it, right? Like a lot of, again, like we said earlier, like a lot of my favorite MCU movies are movies that feel very different than the rest of the MCU, right? And I think that whether it's Cap 1 or 2, or whether it's Ragnarok or the Guardians movies or Iron Man 3, or like, yeah, a few other, like Black Panther, a few others, like ones that feel so distinct and so different. And I think throughout this movie feels the most kind of weird out of Iron Man's 3 movies. It, in a lot of ways, kind of feels very like Batman Begins-esque, where like he's not in the suit, quote unquote, for a lot of the movie. And whereas like Batman Begins all about like Bruce becoming Batman, all about him like getting into the suit, this movie is very much about the fact that like Tony doesn't need the suit to be Iron Man. He doesn't need to actually be flying around to be that. And I think that story, that lesson, again, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is like the entire heart of his arc throughout the first 3 Iron Man movies and Avengers 1. And I think it's paid off so well here. Like I love the end of this movie still. Like it is still, I think, such a good end to this movie and such a good end to this character. Like I'll beat a dead drum for the rest of my life, but the fact that like Tony Stark should have left here. He should have, like, this should have been the last movie with Tony Stark, and he should have left and just been out of the MCU. We don't have him. We don't need him. Or if we have him still, we have him not in his suit. He's not just immediately back again with like 5 million Ultron knockoffs in Age of Ultron, where it doesn't make any fucking sense from where we last saw him to where he is now. It doesn't make any sense. Like he's such a, I think, full circle arc, right? Like I think his like stuff with like PTSD, this movie is awesome and like really novel and like really cool to see a superhero character actually dealing with the trauma and actually dealing with the life or death situation, actually dealing with the consequences of their actions in a way that, apart from like Batman stories and like Spider-Man 2, we very rarely see. And I think that it just offers up such a distinct and fresh take on Tony Stark, Iron Man, a Marvel superhero in general. And my biggest takeaway is what I said before, which is that I'm just so bummed out that Marvel doesn't give a shit about this movie. Like they just couldn't. And like it bums me out so much where it's like they focus more attention on Iron Man 2 than they do in Iron Man 3. Like it's just like, I'm just like, it's such a bummer that this movie gets the short shrift that it does. Because it's great and it's so much fun. And yeah, that's my general takeaway still.
Chloe, what do you think?
It's a perfect Christmas movie. We watched it like a month late, but it's fine. It's still great.
It's a great Christmas movie, yeah.
Right? It's perfect.
It's got some cute Christmas elements for sure.
Yeah.
I like the dynamic with him and the kid.
Yeah, for sure. And then also the kid's
yeah.
great too. And we'll get to that in another segment.
Will we?
Yeah, it's funny.
I wonder what segment that could be.
What could it be, Ben?
We don't know, but we'll get there. I have some questions for you guys. Obviously, so we spoke a little bit about the Mandarin twist. I know, Logan, you're a big fan of it. Chloe,
I think it's clever.
How do you feel about the Mandarin twist?
I have no strong opinions about it. It was neat the first time. Now it's like, okay, now I see. Yeah. You know.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to actually circle back around to that question for myself because I want to ask you guys a second question that I'm going to tie in together when I talk about my feelings about the Mandarin twist. What do we feel this movie is saying? What themes do we get from this movie personally? I'm sure, Logan, you've talked about how you love the ending of this, so I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on this. I'd love to hear them. What do you feel this movie is saying to you?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, right, is again, it's Tony. I think Iron Man 1 happens, and it's this wake up call to Tony about the unintended consequences of his actions in the world, the unintended consequences of what he's been doing, how he's gotten all this money out, like what his life is built on, and kind of some of the lies or just ignored kind of facets of it all, and kind of the complexities of his own father, and also the life he's living, and kind of how shallow it can be, right? And so he I think finds solace in this suit to kind of make a difference, to help the world out, right? To be this kind of hero to make up for what he's done. And I think the arc of him in Iron Man 2, maybe not amazingly well done. And then in Avengers 1, and then finally here is it's kind of learning that like he doesn't need the suit to be a hero. And it's most big sense. He doesn't need the suit to be this kind of person who can do good in the world, who can make a difference, who can save other people, right? Like I think Tony Stark's always been unique, right? Because right from the get-go, he's always like, I'm Iron Man, right? Like he doesn't hide his identity. He doesn't try to mask the fact that he's somebody that he isn't. He's like, this is who I am. And he embraces that. And I think for the end of this movie, for him to be like, yeah, and like who I am is Tony Stark, and I don't necessarily need a suit and a mask to be Iron Man. Like I can just be Tony Stark. I can be Iron Man. I don't need the suits. Like my mind, right, is my greatest weapon, right? My skills are my greatest weapon. I think intellect and creativity and leadership, these are the kind of things that make me Iron Man, right? And so I think that's kind of what this movie's driving at. Like you don't need a suit, you don't need a mask to be a hero, right? It's very Into the Spider-Verse-esque. Anybody can be a hero with the right kind of, I think, willpower and brain and kind of selflessness. And I find that really poignant. And I think a lot of his conversations with the kid kind of highlight that and kind of figure out what makes Tony, what makes him special, what makes him a hero kind of thing. And so I would say that with a mixture of like dealing with actual ramifications of what has happened before, right? Like that's another big theme for me. This movie's like Tony dealing with obviously what has happened in New York, and dealing with it to varying degrees of successfulness or not, but dealing with it and confronting it and addressing it in some aspect, right? And I think, I mean, really arguably being like the only character in the MCU, aside from maybe Cap, who deals with the fact that he's been through traumatic events. He's been through tragedy and a near-death experience, and has like their repercussions to that, right? And I think those two kind of twin themes run throughout the entire film. So that's what I would say this movie's about.
Chloe, do you have any thoughts on the matter of what you feel like you got from this movie?
I just like how he dealt with his trauma, because we don't really see that in superhero movies. Not in this way. Like, you don't see the big hero having panic attacks. Like,
this is my thing, yeah.
You know, I'm a big, strong guy. No, I actually see him suffering from falling through a wormhole in space. I think that would kind of fuck up.
Crashing into the earth, yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Addressing mental health issues through the lens of a superhero movie is definitely like a very cool, unique thing that I would not expect to see from, especially the MCU. And maybe I'm saying that a lot retrospectively because so much has come after it. Maybe at the time the MCU was a lot more like wonky, but it's still, it seems like a very unique thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues with this movie, guys. This is where we get into where I complain.
Okay.
So, because I want to talk about the themes. I want to talk about the Mandarin twist because I have issues with the themes and the Mandarin twist. Because I think the Mandarin twist is conceptually good, but I think in practicality it's bad. Because this movie kind of jumps from theme to theme to theme. Not like the mental health issue. That's a relatively cohesive theme that follows through it. However, the overall like actual plot of this movie, the Mandarin presents this idea of like America and its flaws and its faults and like having to address that. But that is the lie. That's not the movie's actual theme. That's the theme that this character presents. And the movie's like trying, but because that twist is held for so long, you're watching this movie going like, okay, so we're delving into like the flaws of America and the flaws of like things we've done in our past. And like, there is kind of that mirror of, you know, Tony's past coming back to haunt him and like America's past coming back to haunt him. But I still feel like they opened that box of like the flaws of our country. And then they reveal that the Mandarin is fake. And that just kind of like throws all the flaws of our country themes out the water. And then it becomes two things. One, it kind of becomes a theme and a question of like, how can you manipulate media? Which I don't dislike. I think that's really cool. Like the idea of the Mandarin being an actor and all of this being fake to grow business and capitalism and all that kind of stuff, I think is genuinely very cool. My issue becomes the terrorism in America and our flaws thing gets thrown away. And then the media manipulation theme comes into place, but it's never fully built upon because we learn the twist so late that we don't like see Aldrich Killian actually manipulating the media. We just kind of have to like think back retroactively and be like, okay, yeah, so like all this was fake. We get that. And then you go one step past that and you have the overall idea of like capitalism is flawed and dangerous and bad. But even then, and this is like, I have a lot of complicated feelings about Aldrich Killian because I think Guy Pearce performs him fantastically. I think every time he's talking, his dialogue, it's great, but also he's such a generic villain, in my opinion. It's just like he's bad for the sake of being bad. He wants money, but we never actually like dig into that. We never investigate it. Most of his dialogue with Tony isn't about the like ideologies of two businessmen at war. It's about, or the ideologies of, because like there's also this ideology of like man versus machine, because Tony Stark is a man who has built himself off of his machines and like this, he puts on this suit of armor and but he hasn't really transformed himself aside from the arc reactor. He's transformed by stepping into the Iron Man suit. He views these as two identities, whereas the character of Aldrich Killian has become something else. He's become someone else. This is an error reference that I am accidentally making when I'm rolling with it now. Not the point. The point is he has like biologically changed himself. He considers himself the Mandarin, whereas Tony does not initially at least consider himself Iron Man completely. He partly views them separately. And I think that it's this weird thing where I don't think the twist is inherently bad, but I think that Killian isn't a developed enough character for you to pull the rug out from, hey, we're dealing with like trauma and America and all these things and like an ideology. And then you pull out that ideological battle for what is a much, in my opinion, thinner ideological battle, where I think this movie just has a lot of themes going on. I wrote them down. Like it has the themes of like America, it has the themes of capitalism, of war profiteering, of like the fame and the media, of identity with like Tony versus Iron Man, of Tony being like the peak of machine and Killian being the peak of like what man is capable of and approaching it in these different ways. And like the theme of anonymity that Killian talks about where he's like, oh, I realize I'm anonymous and I can work with that. And it's just, I feel like all of those threads don't tie into a cohesive whole. And this is again, Logan, we were talking about this before actually recording, where I gave this a 4 out of 5. I enjoy this movie. So I'm not like digging into it and being like, this is bad, because I respect a lot of what this movie's trying to do. But I also kind of walked away from it kind of just being like, okay. Like there are moments that are cool. There's like the idea of Tony having to deal with trauma I love, but there are also just like a lot of scenes that are tying into some of the other thematic elements. And I'm like, I don't feel much connection to this.
I guess so. Without spending too much time on this, because I want to keep kind of moving along, like my only kind of counter is that I don't think those are really necessarily like this, like the American one. I don't view as a theme of the film at all. Like I think that's like the alleged villains maybe like ideology, but like I don't think it's a theme of the film any more than I think that like Hans Gruber's, right, like mission to fucking steal money out of like Nakatomi Plaza and, you know, Die Hard is like a theme of the film. Like it's like the theme of the film is like John McClane and kind of his everyman one-man approach to kind of stop it, right? And like I think that Marvel movies in general, I'd argue more so than DC superhero films, the villains are kind of just generally not the best.
That's for sure true.
And so like, and like, but more important, I'd argue like they're not necessarily the point. Like why the villain is in the thing is like important in the context of the story, yes, but like I'd argue like their motivations and their things are almost never like a main theme of a film. Or like with the exception, like even in DC, like with the exception of like The Dark Knight, or like Dark Knight Rises and like Batman Begins, like Batman films, yeah, but like I can't think of an MCU film where I'm like that villain's thing is like a major theme of this film with like obviously like Thanos, I guess.
I don't disagree, but I also don't agree because I think most movies, when you're creating a villain, that villain almost always ties into something thematic about the movie. Not like Iron Man 1, Obadiah Stane represents what Tony Stark used to be, what Tony's like the dark Tony Stark. And that is a theme of like, what do you do with these things? Now, obviously, a lot of those villains aren't handled super well. So I think those themes get muddled and lost. But I think part of it is because Shane Black is good at this and because he has made a movie that is a bit more grounded, a bit more emotional and personal. And I also think that there are certain things that when you kind of open that box, you can't just ignore them after the fact. And I think that this movie opened the box of like terrorism and what is America responsible for. And yeah, like there are movies that have done something like that too. Like Die Hard has done that. But I think the difference is that Die Hard didn't remove like an entire character in place of what I consider a weaker character. So like the Mandarin had an ideology and they removed that and they're like, okay, now it's Aldrich Killian. And I like Aldrich Killian's performance again. So it's not to say that I don't think that he could have done it, but I think that there is just kind of a cohesiveness to it still being Hans Gruber that makes it capable for Die Hard to get away with it.
I think for me, what makes Iron Man 3 and the Mandarin twist special is the fact that I think it subverts our expectations of what a superhero villain is supposed to look and sound like and be like. Right? Like it's supposed to be somebody who's like larger in life and like kind of overacted and over dramatic kind of human being and the very shadowy circumstance. Like every superhero villain has to be like it's a Bond villain from the 1960s. They all have to be Blofeld basically with like a secret layer and like shadows and everything like that. And it's like I think it's cool to be like now like he's just an actor and like the real villain is just like a businessman who is like basically like fucked over 15 years ago kind of thing. And it's like just a dude. And it's like I think it's really cool. And I think it like subverts our own ideas of like what a super villain looks and acts like, and in a way that I think that like The Incredibles kind of see where it's like what a super villain looks like isn't necessarily what you think it looks like, right? And I think Wonder Woman, I'd argue for like the month, I'd argue about films like Wonder Woman does it badly, where it's like Ares fucking blows and he's a bad villain in that movie. I didn't get to talk about this last week and it's dumb, but like the movie would have been so much better if it didn't do that kind of thing. And so here it's like I think they do something cooler where it's like, yeah, we're not just gonna have it be like, because like everybody who's mad about the Mandarin twist, you're all, let me rephrase this, 98% of you are fake mad about this. 98% of you never fucking read Iron Man comics and knew the fuck the Mandarin was. You're just like, we're going to get a dope ass bad villain. I'm so excited about this. And then they walked in and was like, that's different than I thought. Saw the outrage and then got outraged by that. I do not fucking believe, and I've never believed for a second, that 90% of people who are fierce with Mandarin twist actually have ever read a fucking Iron Man comic in their life and knew who this character was. You're full of it. And it's like they're mad because like you want this character to be something that is uninteresting, I think. And it's just like very much like samey. Like it's way cooler to me that it's something different, that it's something that feels fresh and feels shocking. Like when that twist happens, that's like oh fuck, like this movie's doing something very different moment for me in the theater is what I felt like. It's like, oh yeah, like I don't know what this movie's like second half is going to be like. And like it's very much like a different kind of like feel to it kind of thing. It's exciting. And I think
that's where I'm at with it.
I
think that's fair. I don't think that's fair.
I think it's totally fair.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to people who are like, don't get me wrong. There are definitely people who are just like so bought into like, this is who the Mandarin is supposed to be. Fuck you. And I think it's fair to criticize them. However, I also think that like, conceptually, I like the Mandarin twist. I like the idea of it being this like businessman. I like the idea of like manipulation of the media and war profiteering and all of these and like capitalism and all these things. I just think that we didn't get enough time with Killian once we know that he's the one doing this to really like feel that. But
I don't think it's important to feel that too.
I think it is. I think it's an underbaked twist. I think the twist doesn't work because I don't think we feel the reality of the situation, or at least I don't personally. And I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair to like criticize all the people who are unhappy with the twist because it's like, oh, this isn't who the Mandarin is. Because like, I think that there is probably a fair amount of people who don't know how to verbalize why they're unsatisfied. So they're just kind of being like, oh, well, like I didn't like the twist. I feel like that's not who the Mandarin is. And yes, that actual idea that the Mandarin has to be exactly what you think he is complicated. And I respect the twist in conception, but I do think there are probably people who they aren't film people. They aren't people who are like super versed in analyzing and critiquing. So all they know is it happened. They were unsatisfied. And now they're latching on to like, well, I thought the Mandarin was supposed to be this and he wasn't. And I'm not pleased with that. So I think that's part of it.
All I'll say is that like I think this movie is worse off without the twist. I think this movie's way less interesting. And
I fully agree.
Feels like a way less of a like breath of fresh air if it's just like the Mandarin is the Mandarin. It's like that and it's done. It's like, all right, cool, yeah, but like, okay, then it's just because at that point, then it's just another like superhero villain who just kind of whatever thing. Or like the twist, I think makes this movie feel so much like special, and I think adds something to the movie. And like I think adds like a jolt to the film and like its kind of final act where it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And like I think that twist is executed very well, but that's less relevant to me than the fact that the twist is there and that it is just doing like, I think Iron Man 3 throughout is doing a bunch of risky things. And I think it is of an era of MCU movies where they still could do risky things to a degree that maybe they are less able to now. Because in a vein that kind of been mentioned earlier, it's riskier too now because financial wise kind of thing, or also because like I think as things get bigger, they inherently become a bit more conservative. And so like back then there weren't like 3 or 4 MCU movies in a year. They weren't like 15, like it was just like, it was something very different. And I think it feels still a little bit different. It feels still a little kind of, almost like unrestrained and kind of unburdened. Like there aren't really any tie-ins to like other MCU movies at all, other than like Avengers 1, obviously. Like it's not like setting up a sequel or 5 sequels like Iron Man 2 is kind of thing. It's not like, no, it's just like, here is a standalone movie about Tony Stark, Iron Man, and go, and like taking a lot of risk with that characters that like all could have not worked. Right? Like it could have not worked that Tony Stark has PTSD. It could have not worked that there's like a annoying side like kid character for like the middle act of the movie. It could have not worked that the movie's like like comedic stylings, I think, any sense of humor. The managers couldn't work, but like it took all these risks, and I think for me at least they all paid off. And I'd rather a movie take a lot of risk and try a lot of things, and maybe they don't work, but like at least it's doing different things, at least it's trying different things, than another Thor movie like Thor 1 or 2 was, or another like basic ass like Civil War movie or Spider movie, which is like, this doesn't work because just, or like it works fine, but like it's the same thing as I've seen before. And I'd rather a movie like this or like Thor Ragnarok, which also could have been a giant disaster, or Guardians of the Galaxy or Winter Soldier, or Black Panther, that are trying and doing different things, right? And I respect that way more than it not taking the risk of the twist.
I agree with you. I think that the twist is definitely more interesting than like, I don't think the Mandarin is actually a super interesting
that's the thing.
character. Yeah, I think that the ideology that is brought up by it is interesting with just like, America. But I do agree with you that I think like, especially the way he was being performed, which obviously it was partially because he was supposed to be this kind of like fake thing. So I don't know if like there probably could have been a movie version where like the Mandarin was interesting, but presented like straight. But definitely like the way this movie was going, if they had just gotten there and the Mandarin was the Mandarin, I don't think we would have gotten a very interesting movie. So I agree with you on that one. And I do also agree that like I like movies that take risks. We talked about it with Wonder Woman too. Wonder Woman makes mistakes, but Wonder Woman is taking risks, and I appreciate that. Aquaman, I love because it is wild and batshit and stupid and risky. Like, what the fuck is that movie even? And I appreciate it for that. Guys, we have a unique thing today. If we're done with this conversation, I'm gonna bring us to something new. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have a listener question.
Whoa.
We don't actively call for listener questions or comments because we want the freedom to record these whenever the hell we want to. But if we have the ability to answer your question, we definitely will. Maybe. Who knows? And we got a question from a friend of the show, Nabashin186 on Twitter. He says, don't know if you accept Twitter questions. We already answered that part of the question. But was curious, when/if you make your own film, would you like to have a sort of constant with your movie, a la Shane Black's movies being during Christmas, or J.J. Abrams with cameo of friends in his movies? Guys, do you think there's like a thing that you'd want to put into all of your movies?
Extremely
if you were to
horny,
make movies?
all the time.
What?
Extremely horny, just all the time.
Just
for robots specifically, or just like for villains? Would it just be like So would you have like a character in every movie that's just like kind of sitting off screen with like a magazine open that's different issues of Sexy Villain Monthly?
Yes. And also I want to change my answer because in every one of my movies, I want Optimus Prime to be there. Nobody ever mentions it, but he's there.
Is it like Pixar where there's like little like figures of Optimus Prime?
No,
or
like
is it like
Optimus
in every
Prime.
Movie? It's just a character.
He's not even like a character. There
Is he
can
like
just
Stan
be like
Lee?
a scene where he's there. Yeah, sure. Stanley cameos, but with Optimus
He's the Stan
Prime.
Lee of your movies.
Yes. I'm building my own
Amazing.
cinematic universe, and Optimus Prime is the one constant.
Logan, do you have a thing you'd like to put into any movie you make?
That's the thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if I would do it, it'd be something like very like Tarantino-esque, where it's like some sort of like reference or homage, like one of my favorite movies kind of thing. But like, I don't think I'd have like a recurring, they're all set during Christmas. J.J. Abrams cameo friend thing, I feel like it's just like a filmmaker thing in general, but J.J. definitely loves putting lots of friends in his movies. No, but I mean, like, I feel like it would just be that. Like, it'd be like doing some sort of like homage or reference, like a favorite scene from a favorite movie kind of thing. There's just a Bond movie in every film in the background. No, like, otherwise, I think that's all I would need to do.
I don't know what's happening, but Chloe's losing her mind on what is going on right now?
Because they sent
God
link to the LSD subreddit, and I'm just losing it. It broke me.
Chloe, diving into that Wannabe Film Class's Discord chat within the That Nerdy Site Discord. If anyone would like to go to that, you can find the link as a reply to the pinned tweet on That Nerdy Site. And apparently, they're losing their goddamn minds because what kind of fan of us wouldn't?
Okay.
I don't know what I'd put into movies. I kind of like the Christmas motif, honestly.
That's what I was kind of thinking too. Is like, damn, it's a good motif that Shane Black took.
It's a good motif, yeah. Like, I don't know. I think I would need to.
They're all set during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think God no.
Oh God.
I think I would need to like stumble upon it. I don't think I could plan it. I don't think I could like go in and be like, this is what I want. But I mean, like, I write a lot of movies with dead parents. You know, that's a common.
What a recurring motif.
Well, I mean, it's not that uncommon with like, because I write a lot of movies that feature, kids as protagonists or like teenagers as protagonists.
Hero's journey.
Or even young adults.
Dead parents.
Yeah.
There you go.
And obviously, the dead parents helps. And like, if you watch Disney movies and stuff, you see a dead parent or dead parents pretty frequently because it's just like a good, easy way to like establish that this character needs to grow. It's kind of a cheap move, but also I like it. So whatever.
It's very effective.
Yeah. I mean, the hero's journey, like we were talking about, is a very established, used thing, but it's effective.
Like, a cliche is a cliche for a reason.
Exactly. Exactly. Guys, this movie did very, very well for itself.
Yes, it did.
It was released in May of 2013 alongside other superhero movies that year that I will not name because that's going to be trivia. However, it came out dethroning Pain and Gain, which was number 1 at the box office before Iron Man 3 came out.
The first and only Pain and Gain reference on the podcast history. I can.
Wow.
I mean, there's gonna be more Pain and Gain references in the podcast history going forward. We both know it.
I will not.
I mean, you know why.
Pain and Gain.
You know why.
Do I?
It's gonna be her fault.
What?
Who's in Pain and Gain?
Who do you think directed Pain and Gain?
Oh God.
Michael Bay, guys.
Did he really?
You think we're not going to talk Michael Bay on this podcast at some point?
Michael Bay month? But even in a Michael Bay month, are we going to nominate Pain and Gain?
Oh, God, no. I'm not saying it's going to be like the topic. I'm saying at some point, Chloe's going to say Transformers, and we're going to be like, well, so Michael Bay did this, and then he made Pain and Gain, and that was like his weird passion project.
Hey, you know what? Here's the thing about Pain and Gain. It's real bad.
I'm sure. I haven't seen it. I don't want to. One might say it did not Dwayne The Rock.
Oh, okay. You get a C+.
I wouldn't say it because, again, I haven't seen that movie. This movie was followed by the Great Gatsby movie that came out a week after it. Great Gatsby was not able to dethrone Iron Man 3. Juggernaut That's it was.
Not a shock.
But you know what movie did dethrone Iron Man 3?
Ooh.
A little movie called In May of 2013. You want to take a crack at it? You want to try and guess? This isn't trivia. I didn't plan this.
May of 2013. No, I don't know.
It was Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh.
Coming out 2 weeks after Iron Man 3. It was able to dethrone it as number 1 at the box office. But that was not a big deal for Iron Man 3 because it still made $1.215 billion.
Yeah.
Billion.
On a budget of $200 million.
Wow.
It did not do as well in reviews, though. It got a 79%, coming in just below First Avenger, which was an 80%, and just above Captain Marvel, which was a 78%.
The movie made bank.
It made a lot of bank. I don't think it cared that much that its reviews weren't stellar.
And especially at the time, because like a lot of movies are passing now, but like at the time, like $1.2 billion is a hell of a lot of money.
It's still a hell of a lot of money. Like,
yeah, I mean,
this movie is still one of the highest grossers if you aren't accounting for inflation.
I think it's like 15th all time.
Well, that's a trivia question. So maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong.
Damn.
So before we get to trivia, though, we have some other things to talk about. As I told you, Jon Favreau declined to direct it for his weird Magic Kingdom movie that never happened. The main villain of this movie originally was not going to be Aldrich Killian.
Go on.
Originally, the main villain of this movie was going to be Maya Hansen, the scientist. Okay. Do you know why they didn't make her the main villain? And like when I say she was going to be, I mean, there was a draft of this movie where she was the villain.
Misogyny?
Yeah. You want to guess from who?
Kevin Feige?
I was going to guess either him or Jon Favreau.
So the reason they didn't make Maya Hansen the main villain of Iron Man 3, and this upsets me as I'm saying it, is because they sent the script draft to Marvel Corporate, which, to be clear, supersede is like above Kevin Feige. They sent the script draft to Marvel Corporate, and Marvel Corporate responded, "No, your villain can't be a woman. It'll be bad for merchandising. We need to be able to sell toys." I hate Hollywood.
But who's buying an Aldrich Killian toy?
Right?
Nobody.
Nobody's doing that.
And
he
yet,
doesn't even have
here we are.
He's just a businessman.
I'm just imagining
Who's buying a Mitt Romney action figure is all I'm saying out here. Who would buy that instead of a Maya Hansen? Like, what is that?
Oh my god.
I'm just imagining someone at Marvel Corporate. So Shane Black doesn't know who specifically it was at Marvel Corporate. I will say, though, that Ike Perlmutter was the head of Marvel at the time, and he doesn't seem like a great person from things that have been said online that I cannot confirm. But what I will say is, I'm just picturing a bunch of people at Marvel Corporate being like, nah, she'll never sell toys, man. You know what will, though? A white man with some dragon tattoos, shirtless and orange. They'll love it. They'll love the orange man. Oh, God, they were right.
It's so stupid.
No, but guys, 3 years later, the prophecy came to pass. They did love the orange man.
What a weird fact.
The world is wild.
Truly.
So on top of this, roles of other female characters were also shrunk from script to screen, namely the woman who fights Tony in the town in Tennessee. She was originally a bigger character.
That makes sense.
And then she became less of a big character. Yeah. I will say, though,
strange.
Despite the interfering from Marvel Corporate in terms of these things, Shane Black does speak highly of Kevin Feige and even says that part of the reason he was able to maintain his sanity is because Joss Whedon came to him and was like, hey, I know you're losing your mind about visual effects stuff. Just trust Feige, trust the machine. They'll handle it. And that doesn't seem like the best mentality based on how visual effects have gone with Marvel sometimes. But in this movie, I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. They worked fairly fine. There were a couple moments where I was like, wonky, but overall,
like the floating head.
I enjoyed it.
Like it's
2013. Yeah,
that's true. This was 7 years ago.
mean, speaking of visual effects, though, there were 17 visual effects studios working on this movie.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
Yes. And the man who was in charge of overseeing all these studios, the head of the visual effects department for this movie, said that between the months of January 2013 and April 2013, the visual effects artists worked 14 to 18-hour days. And they got 1 day off in that entire stretch of time.
Oh, God.
I hope they had a party.
Oh, Jesus.
Visual effects artists are overworked, and we have serious problems with the content creation pipeline. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
If you have 17 studios and you still can only give them 1 day off in 4 months, that's bad management. Just to be clear again, that's bad management and bad production. That's not.
I mean, yeah, it's this idea of like, constantly churning out these movies. There's just so many of them, and Marvel can only contract so many visual effects studios because only so many exist. Also, there's the other issue that a lot of visual effects studios shut down. There are very few that survive. So it's like these people work their asses off for very little money. And then they lose their jobs eventually, but like the entire business they work for probably loses their job unless you're Weta Digital, which was one of the studios that was working on this movie. Because of course it was. They do everything. Anyway, moving on from labor abuses, because we could talk about that forever. Originally, Tony didn't say I am Iron Man at the end of the movie.
Oh, shit.
He said something else. He said, I am Tony Stark.
That's what I thought. Yep.
And he could have forever changed the entire place of Endgame. That wasn't a great way of phrasing that, but whatever, we're rolling with it. Yeah, he almost said I am Tony Stark. Personally, I kind of like that better.
It's very good, actually.
Yeah.
Not bad.
They changed it to I am Iron Man because they thought it felt more mythic, which, like, I guess a little bit.
It also brings it again full circle with Iron Man 1 where he goes I am Iron Man. So again, there's symmetry to it.
Yeah.
For sure. So this brings us to an important segment, an important question.
I'm ready to know Chloe's, some answers.
It's time for Nailed It with Chloe Naylor. Chloe, review the sexiness of Aldrich Killian.
Yeah.
Okay, objectively.
The Mandarin.
Yes, he's hot. Literally too.
Do we have a
don't find him
hot
sexy.
Scale? We should work on that, like a 1 to 5 hotness scale.
As someone who doesn't believe in numbered reviews overall, I will fight for Chloe's right to just say whatever the fuck she wants.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
You can give a hot scale right now if you want. It's up to you. This is your segment.
No,
you have the full power.
He's like a 2 then out of 5.
Okay.
That's what
I don't find him sexy.
Does he get a boost from being literally hot?
I guess I could make the stupid
question,
hot
Dave.
jokes about that, but like it'd be way funnier if I actually found him.
Or does he get a
hot.
knock because like that's dangerous? Or does he get a boost because like that's dangerous?
Yeah. All good questions.
I feel nothing for this man. Tony already ticks
Damn.
the snarky asshole billionaire boxes, so like I'm
That's a
good
good
there.
point. That's a good point.
That's fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
a good
Dude's
point.
an off-brand syndrome, so yeah.
Oh, damn. He just got wrecked.
A strong attack. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Right?
That's a fair critique.
Not the one I've been waiting for, though.
There.
Been wronged by the hero, 15 years ago, and he's back with a vengeance. I'm like, his syndrome did it better.
Of course, Chloe, that's the Mandarin, Aldrich Killian, but there is another Mandarin in this movie.
Yeah. This is what I'm
Quote
excited for.
unquote, the Mandarin. Chloe, review the sexiness of quote unquote the Mandarin.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's funny. He makes me laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point.
More than Killian did, but
That's what I'm saying.
This is where we learn how much Chloe values humor over everything else.
it's true. If you make me laugh,
Yo, look
Yeah,
at that guy sitting on that chair when he's like caught. It's like, yo, he's living his best life out there, fam.
honestly.
He's just chilling with his bros, and by bros I mean probably
Exactly.
prostitutes.
I mean,
Hey,
hey.
he's got hoes. That's fine. Hoes before bros.
But Chloe, what are your thoughts? You're tiptoeing around these.
I don't think
This
that
take.
he's sexy at all.
I mean, yeah, that's what I expected.
Yeah.
He's like he's cute.
It's cute.
Is he
Cute. I mean, like in like a weird, like adorable, cute kind
Yeah.
of way.
He's like a pat on the head, like, there, little buddy.
Oh yeah, you're so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, definitely.
Not like
Please don't murder any more people
Yeah.
accidentally.
You're adorable. Don't,
He's like
don't kill me.
Ducky from a John Hughes film. He's like cute.
Sure.
I don't have a reference for that.
Me
Have you not seen
neither.
you've not seen Pretty in Pink, 13 Candles?
I haven't seen Pretty in Pink. I've seen like
Yeah.
Breakfast Club. I've seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I've seen Home Alone. It's
Yeah.
like I've seen John Hughes
Yeah.
films, but
You should watch Pretty in Pink, Ben. You would love Pretty in Pink.
I'll get
probably.
around to it.
Yeah.
This brings me to another important part of our show.
Mhm.
Trivia.
Oh boy.
Guys, for my first question.
I'm ready. I was
A
gone for
scene.
2 weeks, so is it Chloe? Who's winning now? Is it? It's a
Chloe's
tie,
still
right?
winning. Like there's no.
Probably no
There's
need
been
for it.
exactly one time that we've scored
It's
this.
1-0. It's 1-0.
It's 1-0. This
Okay,
is your
back
chance
at
to
it.
finally not be losing.
Here we go.
So here's the important question. Guys, the headquarters of Stark Industries, as presented in this movie, is filmed at a major video game studio. What studio is it?
Is it Sony?
No.
No.
I guess.
Wow. Where is Stark? Is it in California?
I will say that where Stark headquarters is supposed to be located does not equate with where this business is located.
Awesome. That's even better. That makes it even easier for me. Just completely random. I'm gonna say you said it's a famous game studio.
It's a very big game studio.
I'm gonna say Sony Santa Monica.
It is not Sony Santa
Yeah.
Monica.
Is it Lucasfilm?
No.
Okay.
Chloe, you got a guess?
It's hard.
Famous video game studio. It's not Sony.
It's a big deal. It's pretty cool. It's fairly grand.
God, BioWare. I don't know.
Not BioWare.
I'm at a loss. What is it?
I'm trying to think of a good clue to give you, except for the clue I already gave you that was so subtle that apparently neither of you noticed.
We got a clue.
Rockstar?
No. So, how, okay, Tony Stark.
I'm trying to think of something clever and witty to say to make us like,
Uh-huh.
No, I'm trying to think of something to say that isn't blatantly obvious because the only thing I have right now is very obvious. So, this movie really is about the perils of war, the inner workings of it.
Activision?
What do you think?
The mechanisms.
Think I'm a gamer or something? What?
The mechanics of warfare, guys.
Infinity Ward? Treyarch?
Microsoft?
Oh boy.
These seem like Call of Duty references. That's why I'm like, Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Activision,
Who makes Gears of War?
Sledgehammer.
What?
Like,
who makes Gears of War?
Oh, Gears of War. Oh God. That's just an Xbox studio. I'm not an Xbox. I'm not.
Okay, so I'm gonna give this to Chloe.
Blazinski. It's the guy.
I'm gonna give this to Chloe because she at least pieced together Gears of War.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
It's epic. It's epic games, guys.
This seems. I just want to say that's bullshit. But take the point.
Okay. Sure.
Neither one of us guessed it. I don't
have enough trivia questions to make it balanced. I could give you. I could not give Chloe points for that. However, then if it's a tie at the end of this, I can give you each half a point, or just leave you 1-0.
Okay. Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Fine. Yeah. Fine. The game. The original thing I wanted to say was like a Fortnite reference, but I didn't know how to say a Fortnite reference without just saying Fortnite, and that seemed problematic.
That had made me even more confused. You'd been like, Fortnite. I'd been like, what?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
What? Panic.
Oh, God.
It was made at Epic Games, which I thought it was shot at Epic Games. Which I thought was cool. That was neat. Little industry crossover.
For all the nerds out there.
For all the gamers.
Terrible.
Anyway, trivia question number 2. So, Logan, we were talking about this already. Iron Man 3 was a very high grossing movie. So, what was the highest Iron Man 3 ranked in the box office overall? Which is to say, movies have come since then, but what was its peak? And where is it ranked now?
So do I get to guess first?
Go for it.
Yes, you do.
So 2013 is when it came out?
Mm-hmm.
So...
This, of course, is not accounting for inflation.
Yeah. Avatar, Titanic, obviously we're ahead of it. Dark Knight, where would the Dark Knight have been ahead of it or not? What else would have been? I'm going to say at the time it came out, the highest it ever got would have been the 5th highest grossing movie of all time. And then where it's at now was the other question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say 16th.
Okay. Chloe, what are you thinking? Bear in mind, both of these numbers count, so you can use the same number as Logan for one of them if you want to, if you think he's dead on, but don't use the same number for both because then,
right,
you're screwed.
Exactly.
You will be judged on closeness.
Perfect. Logan, what did you say? What were your 2 numbers?
Nope. Yeah, just no. Yeah, I guess you have to.
Oh God, damn it. Okay, well, fine.
I'll tell you if you give the exact same numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. Change it.
Got it. So where is
listening is valuable, kids?
Oh God, yeah, maybe. So where it was when it first,
where it peaked at, so the highest it ever ranked in gross,
and then where it
is, and then
now.
where it is now.
Okay, I'm gonna say it peaked at 6, and then where it is now is at 20.
Okay, so Logan, you are correct. It peaked at number 5.
Boom!
Chloe, you are 1 off.
1 off. Damn it. Okay.
However, Chloe, you're correct. It is currently at number 20.
Woo!
Oh.
Which means mathematically, Chloe was closer on the both overall than Logan was. So this one does go to Chloe.
Nice.
You read the 15 on the Wikipedia, didn't you, Logan?
On the what?
On the what?
On Wikipedia, because I know earlier Logan said he thought it was at number 15 now. And on Wikipedia, it does say number 15, but that data is not on Wikipedia overall, but on the Iron Man 3 Wikipedia page. It says this movie's at number 15, highest grossing movies of all time. But that is a 4-year-old statistic.
Oh, shit.
So, Final question. How many movies above Iron Man 3 and the highest grossing films of all time are owned by Disney?
Oh,
Chloe,
God.
since Logan went first last time, you get this one. We will be counting Fox properties.
We are counting Fox properties.
We are counting
Disney.
Fox properties.
Oh God.
Oh God, that's like all of that. I'm gonna guess. Okay, if it's at 20.
And again, it's above Iron Man 3, so Iron Man 3 does not count as one of the numbers.
Right, so 19 of them. I'm gonna guess like
Jesus.
16 of them are not Disney owned.
Okay. Logan?
Star Wars is Disney owned too now. I'm just like, shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fuck. I'm gonna say 15.
Logan is correct. The actual number, I mean, he's not right exactly, but he's closest. The actual number is kind of 13 and a half.
Okay. That's interesting.
And here's why. Because 13 of them are just Disney/Fox movies. Titanic is distributed by Paramount in America, but Fox internationally.
That's a Paramount one then. I mean, I would say Paramount.
I mean, if you guys had like said 13 and 14, I would have said like 13 is it, but I'm giving the wrinkle just for the sake of, giving the wrinkle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that means that you guys tie, which means that it's 1.5 to 0.5, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Half points.
Woo.
Half points for days. Finally, before we wrap all of this up, it's time for executive action, where we each say one or two things that we might want to change about this movie. This obviously is not us saying that we know better than the creators who've put so much work into the film, but simply that we know we all have our tastes and there are things that we might want to do differently. Logan, this is your choice. This is your movie. You love it dearly. Is there anything you'd want to change?
I would say the biggest thing that I would change about the movie is, honestly, it would have been like more of the kid maybe. 'Cause I love the kid. It's a more, but it's that weird thing. Like I feel like we get like the perfect amount of him. Like the Mandarin thing is awesome. Like my cheat answer, because I just want to go back and beat a dead horse one final time, is that like if I could change one thing about the movie, it would be how the MCU has handled the movie since then. Because I just ignore it, and I'd have changed that and been like, just deal with the movie and its ramifications. Because it's cool, guys.
Cool.
So I'm gonna cheat.
I respect that answer. You're the producer of this movie, which means you're the producer of the MCU, which means this is in your power.
Yeah, like because even if you want to like do. Even if you're like, all right, cool, we have Robert Downey Jr. back, so like we have to like we're gonna put him in more movies. Obviously, it's like you could do that in a way that I think still maintains the spirit of this movie and like where it left that character off, and I just like completely ignore it. And I think that's why I'm always so bothered by this movie, and like why I'm so like I defend it so passionately. Where it's like you just like completely ignore it, and like that's just kind of shitty. That's all I would change.
Chloe, how about you?
Okay, so I love the humor, and there's a lot of good moments. Tone it back just a bit, especially at the end there, like when Tony thinks that Pepper died. Like there's jokes.
The undercutting?
Exactly, undercutting moments.
Yeah, the undercutting
which
was
is a problem with
sometimes.
the whole MCU, but like especially there, because there's like he calls like the Mark 42 and it like collapses, and it's funny, but like he thinks Pepper just died. So just quit undercutting those important moments. Like we know she's not dead, but still,
Yeah.
That's what I say. Tone back the humor, which is me saying that, which means it's kind of a lot then.
Obviously, I touched on a lot of things that I would like to have seen more developed. I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about disability and ableism, guys, because this movie has a weird relationship with it. I think that Tony's lesson should not be taking the arc reactor out of his chest, because I think this movie has a weird perception of disability where it treats, and I did some research on this because I was like, oh, I wonder how people like who with disabilities from ableist community, from like not from ableist communities, with disabilities who like talk about ableism frequently view it. And there's some weird things. For example, the vice president is willing to let his boss, his presumably friend, the president, die because his daughter has a disability. She's in a wheelchair. And that's kind of a shitty thing to tell people who also lost limbs, that, hey, you're like, fixing you is so important that it's worth, and it's sympathetic and understandable for someone to do this. Cause it's not like we even see the vice president say anything about it. We just see the girl and we're supposed to know, oh, he's working with this guy. So I think it's kind of weird that this movie has like veterans who've lost limbs and they kind of become these like addicts for this, and they become used as tools. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it's weird that the lesson this movie wraps up with isn't Tony accepting his, because he has a physical disability. The arc reactor is a physical disability. It might not affect him all the time, but it is a physical disability. And I think the fact that he wraps this up by saying, I need to remove this from myself to be pure, instead of accepting it as part of him, is kind of weird. And the way I would change it is simply that, and this is there's an issue here that like it's kind of what happens in Iron Man 2, but I think that when Tony freaks out about having a panic attack, he shouldn't get the answer of it's a panic attack and immediately accept it. I think that he should be convinced there's something wrong with him and be kind of like going crazy that the arc reactor must be malfunctioning. It must be causing these like issues. And the movie's a lot more of him having to kind of accept that, no, the arc reactor isn't his issue. His body isn't his problem, isn't the problem. His physical disability is not the issue. It's his mind. And that's what he needs to work on. Because I just think that it's kind of, and like, I don't have a physical disability. I'm not an expert on this, but it does, from what I've read, both before this, just in regards to disability, and from like some things reacting to this. And I'm not saying that any one person from a community is able to speak for their entire community, but I do find it kind of weird personally.
I would say I don't hate that. I think the one thing for me is that I think Tony moving the arc reactor out of his chest again goes back, for me at least, to the theme of him not needing to be Iron Man, right? To be the hero, right? And it's him removing kind of the Iron Man. It's him being like, yeah, like I don't need this kind of crutch anymore. Like I can be Iron Man without being this kind of thing. And I think,
but I also feel personally, I feel like that's kind of an idea that this movie's imposing on him. Because for me, at least, watching these movies, I never felt like the arc reactor was Iron Man. It was convenient in the fact that it's able to power the Iron Man suit, but it's also, keeping him alive. And because we see it developed to keep him alive, not necessarily to, like, it's developed to keep him alive and to make him mobile while having this electromagnet in his heart. So for me personally, I never felt like the arc reactor is inherently tied to him being Iron Man. I felt like the arc reactor is just kind of like tied to him having gone through this experience that heavily shaped him. And I guess you could argue that to a degree, it's like saying, oh, he's able to move on from the trauma of the initial kidnapping. But at the same time, I think that I still think I'm not comfortable with them saying that like your physical scars are things that need to be removed for you to be able to overcome.
I don't think, but I think they're not saying your physical scars or any sort of physical elements or disabilities you have are ones that need to be removed to kind of make you whole again. I think they're saying kind of the trauma. I think it's kind of, again, back into the movie's kind of theme of like the traumas of your past don't need to be held on to, don't literally need to be like bound within you. Like you can let those go, right? Like, and for me, like the arc reactor very much is like the visual embodiment of the Iron Man persona. It is like the always reminder that like he is Iron Man, like he has this kind of constant flash, and like. But I'd also say that again, to the earlier point, I think it's a good suggestion too. Like this is again, like I'd have liked to have had this conversation at the studio table in 2011, 2013, had this actual back and forth, like, well, what does this scene kind of depict? What does this scene mean? What does this whole kind of arc show in all its forms? And maybe they did. I have no idea.
Because I think there's a responsibility to how you represent things, and it's just because I agree with you. I think that the reason they did it was shorthand. It's not like I think they had this idea in their head that like being disabled is a problem. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I don't want to like just excuse someone for who knows, but I also don't want to like condemn them. So I think it's just that they were using visual shorthand, and I get that, but you're also representing a community of people, and you can't just hide behind, well, we're trying to use visual shorthand to convey this theme, because it's still representation, and you need to address that to a degree. So that's what I would change personally. Moving on from that, though, I know I said we're wrapping up. This has been going on for a decent amount of time, but we did skip a couple things. We're jumping around here. we're freewheeling. We're having some fun times. Up. Logan, you said that you want to talk about the kid more, and I think you want to talk about the kid more for your favorite non-protagonist character. Was the kid your favorite non-protagonist character?
He was, yeah. I think he added a lot of humor and heart, and I think his interaction with Tony, explored and kind of dug around kind of the human side of Tony in a way that we haven't seen. I would personally argue like the most we've seen in any of the 3 Iron Man movie standalones. We get to see like a more human side of Tony here, and kind of a more flawed, kind of fractured side of Tony here. And I think that the kid kind of highlighted all that and kind of helped draw a lot of that out.
Chloe, how about you?
I like Pepper because she's also in love with a rich dick, and that's
hell yeah.
And also, she's really cool. I like her.
Pepper is really cool. I enjoy her a lot.
Yeah.
I think overall, I agree with Logan's choice of the kid. I enjoy the kid despite him being an asshole sometimes. I'm glad we saw him in Endgame at I almost said Chloe's funeral.
The one guy that nobody was like, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, I knew. Like, I didn't recognize him because he definitely looks different. But I remember seeing the kid and being like, is that the, oh my God, fun callback. I'm glad they at least referenced this movie a little bit. But it, removed from the kid, I really liked Happy's role in this movie. I really enjoyed him. Like, Jon Favreau was having some fun. Then he gets blown up, which is like, sucks to be Happy. But then he watches Downton Abbey, and you know what? Honestly, Happy, mood.
Fair.
Downton Abbey's a good show.
I haven't seen it.
First 3 seasons.
I like the entire show. The movie's not great. I like the show, though.
Yeah. So
I want us to get through this quickly, but just rapid fire. What are our 3 favorite scenes? Logan, give me one of yours.
So I guess like the entire exchange of Tony and the kid on the couch, but like really just like that shot I think is really great of just like them together on the couch. I think goes a long way. And like it's weird too, now that I think about this more, where it's like it's also like one of the only like times in like the MCU as a whole where like one of the heroes is just like interacting with like a fan basically of theirs, or even somebody who like knows them very well for like an extended period of time. And like I think that's maybe part of why like I really like it too, is that like there's something unique to just them interacting with like a regular person for like a good chunk of a film, and just kind of seeing the world through like a regular person, just to kind of like deal with their implication of superheroes and supervillains and like the end of the world, and also being like a 8 or 9 year old kid and like just kind of what that looks like.
For sure. Great scene. Chloe, what's one of yours?
When Tony saves all the people falling from the plane.
Nice. Also one of mine.
Nice.
It's real good. Fantastic. So we've narrowed it down to really us just talking about 2. I remember seeing like a preview of that scene online before the movie came out, and I was like, this is fantastic. It's also, I think it's one of the few times you see them really, outside of like Avengers movies when there's like everything's being destroyed, but I think it's one of the like most pure scenes of classic superhero heroics, I guess, because yeah, like in the first Iron Man, he rescues people in a war-torn country, which is not to dismiss the idea of rescuing people from a war-torn country. That's very good.
Mhm.
But this scene felt very like classic, like Superman rescuing a plane classic.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
For sure.
I liked it. Another one of mine, because that was Chloe's technically. I'm not just, you know what I mean. Anyway,
Mhm.
I like the Tony stealth scene a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good one.
It's real good.
Great choice.
I think this movie is at its best when it's the least Iron Man-y, if that makes sense. Like I think Shane Black is at his most comfortable when he's dealing with Tony Stark, the person.
Yep. I agree.
And gives him
for
like
sure.
stealth. Yeah. So like the greater the Iron Man complications come into it, the more I think Shane Black kind of starts to lose it just because that's not Shane Black's element. Shane Black is a very grounded action director and writer. Logan, what's another one of yours?
I
Or your
think
last one, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say like the twist for sure. Again, like I love the twist, but like I would say that like the twist for sure is my top 3. But I'm gonna add on like to the like in addition to the like airplane scene, I just have to give a shout out to like Tony like locked up and like held prisoner kind of thing, and then like get an out scene just for the exchange of like the one henchman being like, I don't even like these guys, because
It's real good.
6 years later, it remains the hardest I've ever laughed at a single joke in an MCU film in the theater. Like I fucking died laughing at that line.
Pretty good.
I'd seen this movie once until rewatching it for this episode, and I still think about that moment a lot.
It's so good. It's so clever.
good.
It's so funny.
It's great.
It's fantastic. Chloe, what's your second choice?
It's when Tony and Rhodey first infiltrate the rig at the end, and they're like sneaking around. Tony like peeks over the hiding spot to see where everyone's at, and Rhodey's like, "Oh, what'd you see?" He's like, "Nothing. It was too fast." It still makes me laugh all the time. Great part.
Shane Black's definitely got a good comedic style to him.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the first panic attack. Because I mean, like, I feel like that makes sense with everything I've said. I think the panic attack, like, I think the idea of panic attacks and anxiety and mental health and PTSD are really cool things to say with a superhero movie. So that first scene, it's cool. Him getting in the Iron Man suit, having a breakdown in front of a bunch of people, wild stuff.
Truly.
And then, so Logan, your third was the plane rescue?
The Mandarin twist, the plane rescue. You can do either one. Like, I would say it's the couch scene, the plane rescue, and the Mandarin twist.
Fantastic. And Chloe, what is your third?
Yeah, I was gonna say Mandarin twist, but mostly
Heck yeah.
at the end, or not the end, where like Ben Kingsley's like, "I'm an actor." It's so stupid the way he says it.
Yep. Yes.
It's so funny. He's great. And he makes the hose go in the toilet or the bathroom where he just like dropped a huge fucking load and it stinks. It's hilarious.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah.
This movie has some really good scenes.
For sure.
Yeah, it definitely does.
For sure. So that does actually bring us to the wrap up now. Guys, what are our closing thoughts on this movie? Logan, of course, as we've been going this entire time, it's your movie. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Iron Man 3 is, I think it's just a ton of fun, right? Like, I think that's a big reason why I love it, is that like the movie is just fun. Like Shane Black, I kind of mentioned, knows how to do, I think, kind of action comedy movies very, very well. And I think this movie from start to finish just runs at a good pace. It's really funny. I think the action really works. I think the way it explores certain kind of more dramatic elements of Tony Stark's kind of makeup and psychology and trauma, I really like. I think the twist is awesome and also very funny. And like, I think it just works really well as a like Tony Stark film, as we said.
Nice. I'm glad you like it. I know I'm like coming in here and I'm like, I have these issues, but I think that...
No, I mean, like, that's the point of the movie. Right? Like, yeah, the part of the podcast.
For sure. But I also just wanted to like show respect and appreciation for the fact that, you know, everyone has their own taste in movies, and it's really cool when a movie connects with someone, especially when it's a movie in a massive juggernaut franchise like the MCU, where it's very easy for movies to just kind of be there.
Yeah.
Chloe, what are your closing thoughts?
perfect Christmas movie. I love the humor, and also I kind of like tackling mental health issues and panic attacks and all that, because you don't really see that in big blockbusters. Good shit.
Yeah. I appreciate what this movie is trying to do and the risks it takes a lot. I think that I like, in a very like egotistical vain way, I wish I could do like a pass over the script, because I think that the overall beats and ideas of the movie are quite good, and I just think that it needs like some things to be fine-tuned. And I do, in an interview, Shane Black says like he was kind of left to his own devices, but obviously, you know, people sign NDAs, and part of me does wonder if there were certain things that Marvel kind of neutered, because I just feel like there's a lot of ideas and themes in here that are half baked. But the overall like mental health issue, I definitely think is super cool, and I enjoy that and appreciate that a lot. And also just, that's a cool Iron Man suit. His like main one.
Yeah, exactly.
But also all the other ones.
But yeah.
There's some dope shit. Guys, before we go, if people liked this movie, are there movies you'd recommend that they should watch? Or maybe if people just liked themes from this movie, but they're like, I want to see a version of this movie that does it differently or better, because that's what I'm going to answer with. So, you know, here we are.
Yeah, I can't answer that aspect, but go watch the rest of the MCU, honestly. I mean, after this, I was in the mood to watch Endgame, and I did that, and then I cried.
And then you cried.
Yeah, it's kind of a mistake, but yeah, it's fine.
What that you do isn't.
It's true.
I would say that if you like the themes of this movie, I'm actually going to branch out of the MCU and say try Spider-Man 2 for starters, which I think, again, explores kind of the weight of being a superhero and kind of the repercussions and consequences of it and kind of the trauma that you can deal with. And also Spider-Man 2, as me and Ben will test, is fucking awesome. So you should watch it anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah, watch Spider-Man 2.
I think that's a great recommendation. My recommendation, I don't know why I said it like I matter more than you guys. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most important recommendation.
Really?
I'm like, Logan, you were saying you're going to branch out of the MCU. I'm branching out of America. So my recommendation for movies to watch, if you like the themes going on in this movie, I have two. One is Kiki's Delivery Service, which is an anime.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I think it also deals with ideas of like mental health and like throwing yourself into your work and being not obsessed, but like being overworked by it and kind of consumed by it and burnt out. So I think if you're interested in like the mental health issues of Iron Man 3, then I think Kiki's Delivery Service is a great movie to watch. Also, it has a similar thing of like not being able to use your powers, quote unquote, and having to deal with things on your own in a way you haven't had to for a while or before. So that's one. Second one, also Studio Ghibli, The Wind Rises. Because The Wind Rises is about, there's a specific scene that made me think of it. There's a scene with Maya Hansen where she's saying, you know, the German, or maybe it wasn't the German, I think it was the German designer who made the rockets that wanted them to go to the moon said, the rockets performed as designed, as expected, whatever, or something like that. They just went to the wrong target. And that reminds me very much of The Wind Rises. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it touches a lot on like artistry and what you want to create versus what it becomes, because The Wind Rises is a semi-biographical story about a Japanese airplane designer whose goal is just that he loves airplanes and wants to make beautiful airplanes, but he's also the designer of the planes that bomb Pearl Harbor. So it's this balance of, you know, like war profiteering and also like artistry and what you want and what if you're responsible for the things that come from it. So I think that's a good movie to watch as well.
Nice.
This has been movie talk. This has been anime talk with Ben.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So this brings us to the end, obviously. Next week, we are talking about our final movie in the superhero month that we got going on right now. We're bringing in a guest, Jazz Foster, also of that nerdy
I forgot,
site.
yeah.
Yeah. I need to coordinate that with her, so stay tuned for us figuring that out. But we're we're going to be talking about Mystery Men, which I've never seen, nor have I heard about until she brought it up. So I'm super pumped.
Good. Ben Stiller, Greg Kinnear, Kel Mitchell. Cast is great.
This is a very
Macy.
Early superhero movie.
Like 2000, I think.
Yeah, I think it was around that, maybe 99. I'm super excited. That'll be a fun time. We're venturing away from the classics, I feel like, that we've been hitting. Of like Iron Man 3 is debatable, I guess. But Iron Man 3 is also the 20th highest grossing movie of all time. So it's not debatable, actually. Iron Man 3 is a classic.
Mystery Men is maybe like a cult set. My family loves it. It's like a cult classic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd never heard of it. I'm a failure as a film person, apparently.
Wow.
I had to learn eventually.
Yeah.
So before we go, guys, where can everyone find you? Logan, where can people find you?
Hey, have you been missing me? Have you been missing my hot takes? Have you been missing my thoughts on pizza, on Star Wars, and all the good things on the internet? You can find me at Lefty Logie on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Google Pixel glasses, all the things out there probably, how the kids interact with each other, TikToking. I've got all of your great thoughts on all the things out there in the world. You can go check out my review of 1917 by the time this goes live. Spoiler alert, the movie's a masterpiece. You can go check out my Letterboxd thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. Spoiler, that movie's not. And you can just generally find me all over the internet. This week, we're all posting top 10s, everything's just all of stuff, decades and movies and years and whatnot. And they're very good, and you should go check them all out. And Ben put a lot of work into the decade ones, so you should read those too. And movies are good, man.
Movies are good. I need to finish writing my decade movies post.
Hey, me too. Me too, man.
It's due tomorrow.
Mine's not due tomorrow, at least. I have some more time.
I don't know when mine is due.
I wrote my games.
He's like, oh shit,
so games are good to go. Chloe, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, what the fuck else? Letterboxd, TikTok too. I didn't even think to plug that, but sure, if you want to. I am on all of those platforms as Echo Chloe. Oh, and Twitch, because I stream there sometimes. Mostly Star Wars. You like the General Grievous content? There you go. That's where it's at.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Hit me up.
You can find me at Mr_BentoBox on Twitter, at Mr. BentoBox, everywhere else, Letterboxd, Instagram. Ian has just made noise and is now frozen in place in the living room. This is a complete sidetrack. You can also find me on... Oh, he's stretching. He's a stretching boy. Sorry, this does not play for anyone, including the people on this. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm enjoying this a lot, though. I'm enjoying this a lot.
Oh my God, wrap it up before you get too horny. Jesus.
No. So...
I don't know if I liked how you said no there. I gotta be honest.
I think I want to leave right now. I did my thing. Bye.
Yeah, Chloe's like, I'm out, man. Yeah.
Finally, you can find me on Nightlight podcast. I talked about it last week, but I was wrong about when it comes out. It premieres on a Friday. I don't know what Friday. I think it might be the end of this month. But I went on Nightlight podcast to talk about horror movies with Ava, my girlfriend, who loves them a lot, and I, who am just being introduced to them. We had a grand time. So if you were looking for that last week, sorry, but you can find it eventually. And if you follow me on Twitter, I'll tell you when you can find it. There you go. See, you win-win. Except that you have to hear the rest of my tweets. See the rest of my tweets. Wow, I am tired. Anyway, I'm really doing it. That's where you can find us. You can also find That Nerdy Site at thatnerdysite.com. You can find our Patreon, patreon.com/thatnerdysite. If you like this podcast, which
they did.
Thank you, but also, man, this has been a rough one on my part. If you like this podcast, you can rate us on iTunes. I'm so tired, guys.
Me too.
I don't know where my brain is.
4 p.m. where you're at, Ben. I want to hear it.
First of all, it's 7. Second of all, don't lie to the listeners. They don't have a sense of time because these are pre-recorded before release. Third of all, I'm in San Francisco.
We recorded all these before Christmas. They're all just backlogged.
I've been bouncing around. Honestly, I wish we had. That'd have been convenient.
There's no reason why we can't. This is not a topical show at all.
I'm well aware of that. But we also have, lives and schedules.
Yeah.
All these things take time. If you like this podcast, subscribe on whichever platform you most choose. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. review us on iTunes if you'd be so kind. It helps the show a lot. Rate us 5 stars. Again, I don't think they can do it multiple times.
No, again, if you don't like what you hear, I want you to find
we're doing this again.
Moises Tavares on Twitter and tweet at him your complaints about the show, and he will be sure to pass them along to us. He is our unofficial PR person. He'll be sure to relay that information back to us. Moises is a good kid. He'll get that.
We actually have an unofficial marketing person now. Shout out to Molly.
Shout out to Molly.
Shout out to Molly. Guys, this has been That Wannabe Film Class. We will see you next week. I need a nap.
Have a marvelous day.